Why are so many people taking fish oil pills? What's that supposed to do for you? Well, people take fish oil for the omega-3 fatty acids. What's an omega-3 fatty acid? Why would I want some fishy smelling oil? For the next few minutes, I'll answer those questions. If you want a much more complete explanation and much better information, read The Queen of Fats by Susan Allport. There are many different fats, and the topic is more complicated than the impression that I may give today, but the ratio of omega-3s to omega-6s is what is of interest to the researchers who advocate the fish oil pills. Although most researchers agree that omega-3s are good for most Americans, there is some disagreement among scientists about whether one should limit the omega-6s to optimize the diet. There are different types of omega-3s which have beneficial effects. Television personality Dr. Oz tells us that some are better than others, but I'll be speaking of them as a group. On his website, Dr. Oz claims that omega-3s are a pregnancy prerequisite that lubricates joints, decreases inflammation, fights wrinkles, protects vision, pumps up the heart, attacks acne, clears cholesterol, boosts the brain, and enhances fertility. He says that it's one of 5 critical supplements that every woman should take. I should note that I don't know if Dr. Oz has a financial interest in any fish oil supplements. Interest in omega-3 started in the middle of the 20th century, when researchers linked animal fat to an increase in heart disease. You already know about that. The big anomaly in this logic was the diet of the Eskimos and others who lived in places without access to fresh fruits and vegetables. Eskimos ate a lot of seals and fish, not much else. I imagine there was some caribou thrown in for special occasions. And those Eskimos tended to have less heart disease than those on the Western diet, which had a much more balanced spectrum of foods. Why did the Eskimos have better heart health when they were eating animal fat and no vegetables? It didn't seem to make sense given our scientific assumptions about the dangers of excess animal fat. So, some scientists, most notably Hans Olaf Bang and Jorn Dyerberg, investigated this, and they found that Eskimos were getting a very high ratio of omega-3 fatty acids to other fats, and those omega-3s were conferring health benefits. Omega-3s tend to make the blood thinner and serve some of the same heart-healthy functions of aspirin and COX-2 inhibitors, but without the adverse side effects. This pharmacological effect is why you should certainly check with your doctor or health provider to see if it's appropriate for you to take fish oil supplements or flax seeds, which also have omega-3s. For example, you don't want to take Coumadin and fish oil pills without asking your doctor. There are many different types of omega-3s. Apparent to many omega-3 fatty acids is ALA. It's found primarily in the green parts of plants, like leaves. It's used in the photosynthetic process of plants. This is why Susan Allport tells us that omega-3s are the most abundant fat on Earth. Remember those Eskimos? They were eating animals who ate green plants. Fish eat plankton, which are high in omega-3s, and are eaten by other fish and seals, so they have the benefits of omega-3s. Caribou eat leaves and grass, which is a source of ALA, and the Eskimos in turn benefit. Researchers like Michael Crawford will tell you that the problem with Western diets is the kind that Americans eat have slowly increased the amount of omega-6 fatty acids and reduced the amount of omega-3s, like our ancestors ate. On his website, PBS personality Dr. Daniel Amen, who's affiliated with UC Irvine, says that, in general, Americans eat 11 to 30 times the amount of omega-6s as compared to omega-3s. When this ratio is out of balance, omega-6s promote inflammation within the brain and other tissues in the body. Foods such as vegetable oils, baked goods, crackers, and cereals are high in omega-6 fatty acids. Furthermore, high heat and processing destabilizes these oils, making them even more pro-inflammatory. He advises, do your best to limit the omega-6s. The brain health of your grandchildren may depend on it. One of the offspring of ALA is DHA, which in humans is found in high concentration in the eyes and the brain, in part because it's able to change quickly due to its unsaturated molecular structure and helps enable nerve cells to send rapid signals. You might be interested to know that there are also high concentrations of omega-3s in heart and sperm tissues. Since the heart, brain, and eyes all need omega-3s to function at an optimal level, dietary intake of omega-3s becomes a lot more interesting. Let me show you how some fats are constructed, which will help explain what omega-3s are. This is stearic acid, a saturated fat. This is not an omega-3. There are 20 carbon atoms, and as you can see, they're all saturated with hydrogen. Notice how stable this looks. Its structure allows it to stack up with other molecules to form a more solid structure. Saturated fats tend to be solid at room temperature. This is oleic acid, which is a monounsaturated acid, also with 20 carbon atoms. Omega is the last letter of the Greek alphabet. If you start with the acid group on the right as the beginning of this molecule, the methyl group on the left side would be the end, and that's the omega end. If you count 9 carbon atoms from the left, you'll get your first double bond. So this is an omega-9 fatty acid. Now this is linoleic acid. If you count 6 carbon atoms in from the omega-methyl group, you'll see the double bond indicating that this is an omega-6 fatty acid. This is a polyunsaturated fatty acid. You already know that omega-3s are generally found in the green parts of plants, but omega-6s are found more in the seeds of plants. There are exceptions like flax seeds and walnuts, but for our discussion today, it's easier to think of leaves being sources of omega-3s and seeds being sources of omega-6s. This is linolenic acid. As you can see, this is an omega-3. This is also a polyunsaturated fatty acid. While scientists will tell you that polyunsaturated fats are better for you than saturated fats, the researchers who advocate fish oil make the distinction between omega-3s and omega-6s. In a moment, I'll show you this difference in cooking oils. Omega-3s are a lot more flexible and unstable than the other fats we've looked at, which is why industrial food processors try to eliminate as much omega-3s in food as possible, as omega-3s have a short shelf life. Cows are ruminants, and they get sick when they're corn-fed, but industrial farms in America have found that it's cheaper to fatten cattle with grains than to let them eat on the grass range they prefer. Most of the beef and other livestock that we now eat in America does not have the amount of omega-3s that were formerly found in our food. Thus, beef fat today is more dangerous for our health than caribou fat. You may recall that I said fats are complicated. This chart shows the different kinds of fats that make up the oils and fats that you can buy at the market. This is from the USDA, and it's organized with products that have the least amount of saturated fat at the top. Thus, canola oil ranks as generally healthier than lard. It's a good idea to reduce the amount of saturated fat in the diet. The thing that surprised me years ago when I first saw this chart is that all of these cooking oils are a combination of fats. You've heard that olive oil is a healthy oil because it's a monounsaturated fatty acid. Well, it's mostly monounsaturated, or MUFA. You could see that it's 14% saturated fat. Olive oil happens to have other chemicals that are good for your health, rendering the saturated fat less damaging. Now this is a reorganization of that chart, with the ratio of omega-6s to omega-3s setting the hierarchy. You can see that some shifting has taken place. The most interesting shift for me is how the fat from beef is changed depending on if the cattle has been grass-fed or fed on grains. If you use the omega-3 ratio as a hierarchy, then grass-fed beef becomes a much healthier option. Hopefully beef lovers will be able to find more grass-fed beef in the future. It's still a good idea to limit saturated fats. Grass-fed beef has a ratio of 2.6 omega-6s to 1 omega-3. That's almost precisely what the omega-3 researchers currently recommend. They claim that our Paleolithic grandparents ate seeds only during short times of the year. The rest of the year, they ate green stuff, or they ate animals that had eaten green stuff. That set our bodies up for an almost even ratio of 6s to 3s. Susan Allport suggests that a ratio of 2.3 to 1 is ideal for health. The government of Sweden has officially set the standard ratio of 5 omega-6s to 1 omega-3 as most healthy, and Japan has set a ratio of 2 to 1. Canola oil and walnut oil are also good choices for omega-3s. Olive oil is in the middle of this chart, but it has other beneficial compounds. It's important to note that heating oil changes its structure, so using unheated walnut oil in salad dressing is a great idea to raise your ratio. You can get to that ratio by increasing your omega-3s and reducing the total amount of omega-6s, but there's a bit of controversy about that. Alexander Leaf of the National Academy of Sciences said, "You have to reduce your omega-6s if you want to get any benefit from the omega-3s." William Lands of the National Institutes of Health said, "We can change our diets Or we could spend billions of dollars a year to suppress omega-6 signaling, which is what aspirin, ibuprofen, acetaminophen, and the newer COX-2 inhibitors Celebrex, Vioxx, and Bextra do. All of the conditions for which we take these non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, conditions that include heart disease, stroke, arthritis, asthma, menstrual cramps, headaches, tumor metastases, have excessive omega-6 signaling. Dr. Dariush Mozaffarian of Harvard, who is on the advisory committee for the American Heart Association, disagrees. He says that omega-6 polyunsaturated fatty acids also have a protective effect on the heart. You should check with your doctor to see if he agrees with Dr. Lanz or Dr. Mozaffarian. Jorn Dyerberg, one of the researchers who found the omega-3s in Eskimo blood over 40 years ago, said, "We have to be careful with our recommendations so that people don't start avoiding omega-6 fats. It's a matter of balance and of understanding how out of balance most diets and populations have become." Dr. Oz indicates that fish oil is a bit more efficacious than flaxseed oil because of its abundance of one type of omega-3, DHA. DHA is found primarily in fish oil. This is the ultimate form of fatty acid in humans. Most people get far too little of this all-important fatty acid, especially since the conversion of ALA to DHA is slow and minimally yielding. Getting a daily dose of DHA, 600 to 1,000 milligrams, from supplements is preferable to reap the health benefits. You have a choice of taking fish oil supplement or one derived from algae or krill, which is a shrimp-like crustacean. How can you increase the ratio of omega-3s to omega-6s in your diet without taking fish oil pills? 1. Eat more fruits and vegetables, especially the green ones. 2. Eat oils with a better ratio of omega-6s to omega-3s, like flaxseed, walnut, canola, and soybean oils, and avoid safflower, sunflower, and corn oils. Remember that when you heat oils, they change chemically. Number 3, eat more fish, but not too much because of the harmful pollutants we have put in the oceans. Small fish tend to be less polluted than large fish. Number 4, choose grass-fed or free-range meats whenever possible. Do you remember hearing about how healthy the Mediterranean diet is? Well, much of the health benefit is attributed to eating more fresh fruits and vegetables and fish. Another interesting thing about eating in the countries that surround the Mediterranean is that the lambs, chickens, and cattle that they usually eat have more omega-3s because they tend to be free-range or grass-fed. Artemis Similopoulos found that Greek eggs have 10 times the amount of omega-3s as American corn-fed eggs. Number 5, cut down on saturated fats. Number 6, exercise regularly to maintain a healthy body weight. The important thing to remember is to emphasize fresh fruits and vegetables, particularly the green ones, that have higher concentrations of omega-3s. If your doctor recommends fish oil pills, it's important to get those that have been molecularly distilled so that the pollutants have been filtered out. Whatever your choice, make sure you exercise regularly to keep that heart healthy.